Okay, so Russians are trying to advance to Konstantinovka from the Chasiv Yar. This video was just shared today, and there are some of the Russian positions which were kaputted, I would say, simultaneously, yeah? One kaboom and the second one. Right, so this one is MTLB vehicle, which is not made for infantry assault operations. The main purpose of it is to tow something big and also to transport goods and infantry, but not for attacks. Soviets made it to deliver supplies closer to the front lines. That's why it doesn't have robust armor. But Russians weld some sort of the hangar type of the drone protection on top, and they go advance with those towards Ukrainian positions. It's absolute madness, but they do it. One unit, as you may see, costs $200,000, but Russia has lots of those in the storages, and they just do some maintenance and tuning, then send everything to the front lines. And this is one more MTLB. The truck was hit. Yeah, this MTLB was offed, and despite the loss of this vehicle, Russians continued their attack. Madness. As for a normal human, it's hard for me to comprehend what is happening inside the heads of the Russian soldiers. I still cannot understand what drives them. Okay, you signed a contract with the Russian army, you obtained those millions of rubles. Nice sum. But is it the only motivation? It looks like it's the only one, because they're not so much patriotic out there. If Russia hadn't paid them that amount of money, there would be no any sort of the volunteers. Well, maybe just absolute sick, insane people, but they are sick as well. I mean, you see, the vehicle is being targeted. So Ukraine is operating with FPV drone drops. So the attack is already a failure. Why you continue? Like, what's the purpose? Maybe Russians behind their front lines, they are telling, okay, if you return back without any sort of the territorial gains, we're gonna offer you ourselves or something like that. I think that's the only motivation for them to go forward, because if they return back, there is the death penalty. And for this reason, Russia has tremendous losses, because they cannot handle their resources properly. If Ukraine had those resources, so Ukraine would have won this war a long time ago, years ago. So the infantry from this vehicle, it landed, and some of the infantry was crawling across the fields, and Ukraine found out Russian soldiers' positions and started just to shell them in those bushes. And the result, yeah, I cannot show you it here. Maybe I'll share it on my Telegram channel. On Twitter as well, I returned back to Twitter. I also started the Facebook. Like, I try to boost my social media. I learned it from Jake Bro, actually. It seems like it helps him a lot, so I want to try as well. The links for my entire social media is in the video description just below, but of course my main one is this YouTube channel. So yeah, vehicle was stopped, then the drone went inside, and the result is understandable. After it, Russians sent some of the motorcycles and all-terrain vehicles. So this is the bike and this is ATV. Russia uses the China-made small transport, and I'm absolutely sure that there are big contracts between China and the Russian army. Russia constantly obtains the cheap shit, and the meaning of it is to survive maybe maximum 2 of the attacks. And the price of those things are basically nothing compared to Honda, Yamaha, Japan brands. Here is Geon Longsin or something like that, 3-4 times cheaper compared to Japanese analogs, if you may compare them. So here they go, to all of the all-terrain vehicles, and of course, yeah, some of their losses. Well, it wasn't the biggest Russian attack attempt. They lost 1 MTLB, 1 BMP-1, it's the old variant of BMP, 2 all-terrain vehicles, and 3 motorcycles, plus loads and loads of the infantry. And as for the infantry, guys, I see many of those videos from Ukrainian drones, and what I may say that the death is not coming at once, as many Russians think. I watch them posting videos saying, okay, if there is the end, it's gonna be brief. No, in 80 maybe % of the cases, judging on multiple of the videos I watch, it is a very painful end, especially if they carry their own munition. Sometimes it catches fire and they may burn down actually alive. As for me personally, it doesn't worth any sort of the amount of the money in this universe, but Russians, well, the price of the human life there is very low, and they go voluntarily, sign the contract with the Russian army, and kaput themselves right away, somewhere in other country. For Ukraine, it is understandable. Ukraine is defending itself. There is different sort of the motivation, not just money, yeah? But Russians, Putin is damn lucky with those people, with those zombies who go and fight for basically nothing. Yeah, I'm shocked once again because Russians renewed those kind of the crazy midwave attacks. Before then they used small sabotage groups and they still use those. I thought, okay, maybe they changed their strategy. Maybe they want to have less losses, but no. They returned everything back as it was in 2023, in 2024. For me, it's interesting, of course, because I review those kind of the videos, I publish my content, but the actual even tactical advantage with this strategy, Russia doesn't have. And it is good for Ukraine. Well, in this case, Russians probably should continue those kind of the assaults, which bring them nothing. In this video, we're gonna check out with you the military map update. So Russians are capable just to propel in the areas where they do not use those crazy attacks, when they advance just with small group of the infantry forces. So let me show you where this attack happened. It was over here in Chasiv Yar. One MTLB was hit, then later on BMP, 3 of the motorcycles and a couple of the all-terrain vehicles. You can see it is the Russian controlled territory, the red one, yeah, so-called control, because after all, Russians are unable to deploy their forces very close to the front lines. They gather those probably even in Bakhmut, but I think that even in Bakhmut, Ukraine is capable to use some of the long-range drones, FPV drones, and Ukraine is doing 24/7 surveillance using its own drones. So for Russia, this attack was a complete failure. It means that they are unable to establish control over the Chasiv Yar. I would put this one totally in a gray zone if Russians are unable to hold Chasiv Yar as the bridgehead with their own infantry forces or vehicles. Yeah, of course we see those front lines, but in general they do not exist any longer. They are fluctuating, boiling all the time, and it's very hard to find out who controls what. So Ukraine still controls this area and this area according to this map. So Russians still cannot occupy Chasiv Yar fully, but they want to use this direction to offend towards Konstantinivka. And we have this big gray zone just because Ukraine used some of the drones against small groups of the Russian army. Doesn't mean that Russia is presented here or partially encircled Konstantinivka. No, they're still far away, mostly concentrated in Toretsk. But even there, Ukraine nails them quite hard with artillery and lots of the other things. As you might see, Ukrainian presence was even here. Let's check out the sources. So yeah, there's some of the house. Ukrainian soldiers stormed some of the Russian building there. It was kaputted. Interesting, you see, and it's here, very far away from Konstantinivka. How many kilometers? Maybe 10, maybe even more. So for Russia, Konstantinivka is a very distant target. You see, Ukraine kaputs even Russian tanks in Klishivka, not far away. Yeah, this hangar type of the tank was located and kaputted. Awesome. But Russians still have an advantage. For example, in Pokrov's direction, there are urban fights already. They have multiple of the attempts to move to Mirnograd itself. The first drive of the Russian army was definitely outstandingly stupid because they used this straightforward road to advance with their armored vehicles, and of course they were spotted, they were kaputted. But later on now they tried to advance with the small forces in this direction. Yeah, before they also lost the convoy on the way to this place, to the local power station, but later on they decided to send just infantry, and with just army men they actually gained more ground. So yeah, they were spotted here. That's why, because of those 1, 2, 3 advancements, this gray area is such a big one. But actually the Russian army is somewhere behind Mykolaiv even, because they're afraid Ukraine is using FPV drones and many more tools. Can Russia potentially occupy Pokrovsk and Mirnograd this year? Well, probably yes, still 2 months to go, 2 months and 1 week, but it's gonna be very hard for them because Ukraine, you see, lots of the marks, blue marks in this area, which is good. And this is how Russians are using their FPV drones. They target civilian agricultural vehicles together with people working in the fields, producing food for people. I cannot show you this image fully, sorry guys, but it is horrific. Russia is barbarian state. This is their face. They target civilians. And today there was the strike on Kherson once again. Yeah, I think I shared it, on my channel. You can see this is the peaceful city and Russia targets it. Here's the building, just multi-story, 9-story building. I used to live in a similar one long time ago. And even in Odessa today, Russians used gliding bombs equipped with jet engines, so it's some sort of the gliding cruise missile with a range of 200 kilometers, so potentially Russia may launch those from Crimea, and they will be able to reach Odessa. I think Kyiv also could be the target for those long-range gliding bombs, jet bombs. And speaking about American sanctions, which Donald Trump agreed to apply on Russia just the day before yesterday, according to the CNN article, one of the main reasons was that Putin continued to target civilian infrastructure of Ukraine, including some of the kindergartens. And something tells me that Melania Trump also influenced that decision. I think she showed to Donald Trump what Russia is doing. You know those horrific images with kids, their kindergarten was destroyed basically, or severely damaged at least. They were not physically hurt, but imagine sitting in a basement and missile or drone, was it a drone? I guess it was a drone, hits the building on top. It is crazy, absolutely. And what Putin does, even for him personally, for his ambitions, is beyond stupidity. He just completely ruined everything, or continued to ruin, yeah? Because Donald Trump, he likes Putin, it's not a surprise. And the main proposal for Putin was, okay, freeze the war in Ukraine, get those occupied territories, they're yours. Yet the world will not recognize those, but de facto, those are your territories. Sanctions will be lifted, we're gonna make business as usual, you'll be a respected president once again, but Putin doesn't want to stop. And actually, Donald Trump is forced now to counter-react to this issue by supporting guy he doesn't like, Zelensky. That's why we see those kind of the fluctuations, pressure on Ukraine, pressure on Russia, turning left and right, 180, 360. That's all about instability under Donald Trump's ruling. For him, Ukraine or Russia, it doesn't matter. He doesn't associate himself with even democracy or the proper humane values. But if Russia continued to target Ukrainian civilians, how Donald Trump would look if he continued this kind of the good relations with Putin? That's why Putin is now at least temporary outcast, but Donald Trump still leaves some of the opportunity for his favorite dictator to change his mind, but he will not change his mind, and me and you, we all know it. And if you go back to the front lines, this is Konstantinivka, so I think that locals absolutely should leave this area as fast as possible. But as usual, there are some of the people who like to stay in their homes till the very last moment until it is too late. And knowing what Russians did in Pokrovsk, this week there was the case, then they went to the local train station with their infantry forces and they start to unalive everyone around, and unfortunately there were some of the people, and one woman was wounded and it's impossible to evacuate her any longer. Our volunteers, they say it's very risky to send any sort of the vehicle there. So what could happen to that wounded woman or to anyone else stayed there, it's hard to imagine. Yeah, it's better to evacuate all the time, but some people don't want to. They think that it will not touch them. My friends, thank you so much for your kind support on Patreon and also membership of this channel. Without your support, my job would not be possible. And today I'm gonna film one more video for you, so bear with me, it's gonna be interesting. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.